Welcome to the Biscuit Book Club on Joy 620 WRJZ, featuring Marcy and Shelley. Today's conversation will build you up in the faith and encourage you to do what God has called you to do. Brought to you by Simplify Holy. And now, let's go to the studio with Marcy.
Welcome to the Biscuit Book Club. We're serving stories with Southern charm. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Marcy. So grab your cup of coffee or sweet tea or whatever it is that you're drinking this warm and muggy morning and settle in as we chat with today's featured author, which today we're going to be calling one of my friends, Shelley. Her name is Sarah Sundin. And Sarah and I met, I think it's been like 23 years. We met at a writers conference, Christian Writers Conference. And we have been friends for a long time. We've gotten to kind of grow old together, I guess. But it's been fun to see Sarah launch her first book, and she had quite a few books since then, but her first book was A Distant Melody, and I loved it. I loved just seeing Sarah grow as a writer. She is an award winner. She has won Christie Award for Until Leaves Fall in Paris in 2020. She was a finalist for Sound of Light and also Twilight Breaks, The Land Beneath, and The Sky Above Us was a 2020 Carol Award winner. And I have to say, I am reading Midnight on the Scottish Shore right now, and the covers are just... Every time I see the covers of Sarah's book, I just think they can't get any better. And then I see another cover, and it's like, oh, my gosh, I was wrong.
Yes. You need to run and get that book for a great summer read.
Yeah.
You can get it at Target or Amazon or wherever. But I knew Sarah from ACFW, and then my first time at Vision Writers Conference, when I walked up the steps, there stood Sarah, and she just embraced me. And I was so nervous, and I'll never forget that feeling of, Sarah's here, and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, she is.
Love that.
She has been a great friend, and she's not only a good writer, she is a great friend. She's the same person that you would imagine writing all these lovely books. But you know what? Instead of just talking about Sarah, let's give her a call and have her join in on this conversation.
Yeah.
I love these old phones. It kind of reminds me of my grandma's house.
Hello?
Hey, Sarah, this is Marcy.
And Shelley,
Hi,
welcome
Marcy.
to the Biscuit Book Club.
Shelley.
We are
Thank you for having me.
Hey, we're so excited that you are not in the middle of a big project, a research project. But I love the fact that you started writing. I mean, gosh, when we met, I think all those years ago, you were still researching all of your stuff. And I loved how diligent you were in your research. And I was just so amazed, like, I came home and I told my husband, I said, I don't think I'm a very smart writer because I have very smart writer friends. And it was like the next year, I'm like, did you know that Sarah's a pharmacist? Like, she's got her doctorate in pharmaceutical care. I make marshmallows from scratch. I don't think that compares. Like, you don't have to know math for that. When I found out that you really were a pharmacist, that wasn't just a fictional, title that you gave yourself, but it totally made sense as to how you researched your books and how you cataloged everything and why you were so meticulous, because that is your passion. That's your training. And I loved how the Lord, and we've been kind of talking about this with some of our authors, how the Lord helps writers just start with what they know and start with what they're comfortable with. And so here you are, a pharmacist who has excelled in the art of research and cataloging and keeping track of all that. And I remember when we were at our friend's house and we were talking about this, and you were like, my agent wants me to get a social presence because when you Google my name, there's nothing next to it. But that is not the case anymore, because you have been doing this today in World War II history, where you have photos and daily information every single day. So that has been a huge outreach to your readers. But also the reason why, and we can talk about that, loop back around to that, but I was telling Shelley, the thing I appreciate about Sarah is the reason why she started writing these books to begin with. So I thought it would be better if I probably can't retell the story as well as you can tell it. So I thought you might want to share that with her.
Oh, yeah. I was never planning to be a writer. I mean, like all little girls who love to read, I thought about writing, but I put it in the same category as being a ballerina or an Olympic ice skater. There's, the dreams that are, out of reach. And so being a fairly practical person, having very practical parents, I chose science and loved science and became a pharmacist and really loved pharmacy. And was happy. Pharmacy is a great career I was basically a stay-at-home mom, worked one day a week as a pharmacist. I was completely content with my life, and then God decided to interrupt my plans, as He does. And I woke up one morning and I had a dream, and that dream would not leave me alone. And the characters were just so vivid, and the dilemma they were in was so vivid. Like, this is just a dream. Most of my dreams are pretty silly. And it would not leave me alone. And so that morning I was washing diapers and driving the carpool, which tells you how long ago it was, and now that I'm a grandma. And the story just kept growing. And I realized that first I thought it was a novella, and then realized, no, it was a novel. And I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't a writer. Last thing I'd written was a thrilling scientific paper about using nomograms to dose warfarin in anticoagulation clinics. Great cure for insomnia. So I didn't know where to even start. So I picked up my kids' lined paper from school and a number 2 pencil, and I just started writing random scenes. And I had no idea what I was doing. None. I was picking up novels off the bookshelf to remember how to punctuate dialogue. And it was crazy. And I couldn't tell anybody what I was doing. It felt like I was, running up and joining the circus, that wild. And finally worked up the nerve to tell my husband, who is also a pharmacist, and gave me the look that maybe I was running out to join the circus. Marcy's met Dave, so she can understand. He's a very no-nonsense person. So anyway, then it just wouldn't leave me alone, and I kept writing, and I finished that novel, and I started another one, and I joined a writer's group and started going to conferences and had lots of rejection letters, and my first book came out almost exactly 10 years after the day I had that dream.
Wow. The other thing, I was going to tell Shelley about this was the reason why you decided to write romance too, because that, I'm not a huge fiction reader. I will read your books because I love them so much, and you've really kind of stepped up the suspense. But it started more with romance, and I loved what you said, that you wanted something that your daughter could read off your bookshelf without blushing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The irony is that my daughter won't read my books. my sons read them. But, that was actually when I first started. My philosophy is like, I want something my teenage daughter can read, that my very strong Christian mother-in-law would read, and that she would be embarrassed having my name on the Sundin name on the book cover, that my pastor could read, that and my pastor's my pastor has read my books. My pastor's wife, my former pastor's wife, is a big fan of my books. So I kept that in mind. Like, I want something, and also I wanted to write something that my non-Christian friends would feel comfortable with too. That they wouldn't feel like I was pounding them over the head with the gospel or belittling them for not believing. So I wanted, because I have so many, I went to public schools, I went to UCLA, I have a lot of friends who aren't believers, and I just wanted to keep them in mind too.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love that your son is your brainstorming partner. And
I know.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the new book, Midnight on the Scottish Shore, came to be?
Yes, and that's my son Matthew, my youngest, he's 26 now. I can't believe it.
I can't believe
but,
that.
I know, little baby boy. He's got a mustache and a beard. He's a Navy veteran. Okay, my baby.
Aww.
But and if he were listening, he'd be giving me the look. But anyway, he really loves mythology. He's always loved mythology, and I was playing around with new ideas for new proposal for new books. And my husband kept saying, well, why don't you write one set in Scotland? I'm like, well, I'd love to do that someday, but the problem is it was a quiet area for World War II. It was, being part of Britain, they were under the same problems, that Britain was facing. There were bombings and stuff like that. But basically, it wasn't London and Paris and all the places we associate with World War II. But I still love that idea. And then I was sitting down with Matthew, and he said, well, if you write one set in Scotland, you should look into Scottish mythology and try to work that in. I said, okay, tell me some of the Scottish myths. And so he told me the story of the Selkie. And the Selkie looks like a seal at sea, and she swims around the ocean. But when she comes to shore, she sheds her seal skin, and she is a beautiful young woman. And men who see her can't help but fall in love with her, and they want to keep her on land. The problem is that the Selkie doesn't want to stay on the land. She wants to return to the sea. So he has to trap her, and the only way he can do that is by hiding her seal skin. And if she ever finds her seal skin, she's going to leave him and go right back to the sea. So that's the legend. And in my brain, I immediately pictured a German spy coming to shore in a rubber raft. When that's how they did it. They came on U-boats to drop them off, or sometimes they parachuted, but sometimes they came by U-boat, and then they dropped them off the rubber rafts. And I imagined her coming to shore, and this kilt-wearing Scottish man seeing her, and he is going to capture her by stealing her sealskin, her rubber raft, and so she can't go back to sea. And so that was the image that played in my head, like, well, then I had to make it real. And how would that work in the real life? And, of course, I couldn't have her be a true Nazi, or my readers wouldn't want to read that book, and I wouldn't want to write it. So I made her a member of the Dutch resistance, and she gets herself in trouble, wants to escape, and she can't. There's no way to escape from the Netherlands at that point. And she hears that the Germans are recruiting spies to go to England, and being an impulsive sort, says, there's my free ticket to England.
Yes.
So she fools the Germans that she's one of them, becomes a spy, goes to Scotland thinking, that's it, I'll just ditch them and, live my best life. Until Lachlan Mackenzie, who is a honor and duty member of the Royal Navy, finds her on the beach, and being honorable, he turns her in knowing that she'll be executed. So that was the big scene that started this novel.
Yes, and actually, I just got done with reading that part where he's like, "Oh no, you're coming with me," and she's like, "No, really, I'm not who you think I am." It's like, oh my goodness, it really started off great. I have to say, when I went on your website not too long ago, Sarah, I could not believe how much your great uncle looked so much like your son. Do you think Matthew looks like Frederick Stewart?
Yeah, I do.
That is crazy. So it's like, oh my gosh, it's kind of
especially
like
when they were in their Navy uniform. It was really cute.
Yeah, that is very cute. I loved it, and I love the World War II series. John and I were in a 21-piece Glenn Miller tribute band, and so just the music, everything World War II just was such. Everybody was involved with the World War II. Even going back through the archives when I worked for the newspaper, buy Pyrex for your wartime casseroles. Everything was about war bonds and all that stuff. And I just love how you really have captured all of that into your books. Not that you share every little scrap of information, but that you really have done the research to where there's a lot of stories like the Embers story. It's parts of World War II history that I had never thought of from different points of view. And so I just love how you've woven those stories together.
Mhm.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the fun thing about doing the research. It inspires new stories. So, going back to Midnight on the Scottish Shore, the reason I was able to imagine this spy coming ashore is because I'd been reading about the German spies who came to England. And I knew a little bit about it, and then, doing a bit more research and finding how Britain's MI5 program would capture the spies and then turn them to become double agents. And then they were feeding false information back to Germany. So, of course, for Stella Vanderzee, that was the logical choice. The MI5 gave them a choice. You can go to the gallows or you can work for us. And some of them chose the gallows. They were loyal Nazis. But a lot of them, there were about 36, I think, that turned and worked for Britain and worked well. Some of them were pretty lazy and not very good, but some of them were amazing and really helped turn the tide of the war. So, so I knew enough to know that the story idea would work, and enough for that to inspire that story idea.
And then in some of your research, you've also gotten to go on some great adventures. And I just remember when you got to go on the B-17 Flying Fortress, that was huge. Would you say that's one of the pinnacles of your
oh my God,
adventures?
It was amazing. That was just amazing. And I've been craving to do it because I've been visiting, the B-17s would visit our local airport once a year, and I walked through them every year. As soon as I started running, I was walking through my first series involved B-17 pilots. So I was walking through the B-17s every year, taking tons of pictures, trying to imagine my characters where they were. And they offered these flights, and at the time I think they were about $400. And, I just could not justify spending $400. I wasn't published. I was already spending all this money on conferences, and you spend a lot of money before you can get published.
Yeah.
And my husband's going, this is an expensive hobby you have. I know. So, but after I got published, my first 2 books had come out, I said, this year I'm going to splurge, and I'm taking this B-17 flight. Well, while I was still thinking about that, I was contacted by a guy who works for one of these companies that has the B-17s, and he actually helped me with some of my research. And he said, by the way, if you'd like, I can get you on a media flight. All you have to do is write a blog post about it.
Wow.
So I got to fly for free, and because it was a media flight, so I was on there with all these actual journalists.
You're like, well, yeah.
I have a blog. I just started it, but hey.
I'll see if I have that time in my schedule.
Yeah.
I know.
I'll see if Marcy can comment on it. She's somebody who knows I have a blog.
Exactly. I know. And they also had a veteran on that flight who had flown with B-17s. I can't remember what position he flew. I did this over 10 years ago. But so I'm on this. Of course, all the real journalists are surrounding this guy and asking him all the questions. And here I am, an introvert writer, and I'm just going to listen and mentally take notes.
Oh yeah.
Because if I start talking to him, I would be just like, I'm your biggest fan. Can I have your autograph? So it would have been rather silly. Interviewing is not my skill. So, but I got to bask in the presence and benefit from the actual journalists asking these great questions and getting these answers. And it was a great experience.
Well, and with all your research, when you actually went up, was it what you thought it was going to be? Was it louder? Was it jiggle? Were you like, ooh, feels like it might not hold together? Was it a bad roller coaster?
Yeah. It was rollicking, and I think it was louder than I expected. But I also had read a lot of the accounts that talked about the loudness, and they wore earphones with intercoms so they could talk to each other. But so I knew it was going to be loud, but experiencing it is different. And, you know, it's nothing like modern commercial flight, which is so smooth. And if there's a little bit of a turbulence, everybody looks at each other and goes, ow, we've got a bad pilot today. You know, so it's like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, and you have to think of where they were landing and stuff. You know, it wasn't like the smooth runways that we have now. So it's like, excuse me, you just spilled my beverage.
And exactly. And it was like all these 18, 19-year-old pilots who basically had learned to fly just a few months before. And they were flying these massive bombers over enemy territory, getting shot at. No compressed, basically they had to wear oxygen. I'm a writer. I do words for a living. Can't think of the word. No pressurized cabin. Cabin isn't pressurized. So at 20,000 feet, there's no oxygen. So they had to wear oxygen. They weren't heated. So it was horrible conditions. They're wearing these, you know, heavy uniforms, you know, with sheepskin and just trying to keep warm and stay alive. And meanwhile, they're getting shot at. So incredible heroics, what they did, just getting there and getting back after each mission.
Well, and from just being with the swing band, just hearing the stories of some of these veterans who, you know, they would have a caterpillar, and if it had a red eye, a ruby on it, then that meant that they were shot down, like that but their parachute didn't catch fire. Because we don't think about all those kind of things. Like if their parachute was made of silk and it hit a piece of the flaming fuselage, hit it, the parachute would burn up, and then you know, even if they successfully got out of the plane, they still might not make it to the ground. So there's so many things that we don't think about during that time period, but to hear their stories, and I just think you have really given a lot of honor to that generation who were our grandparents and our great-grandparents. Yeah,
that was my goal. My grandfather was in the Navy as a medic, and my other grandfather wasn't able to serve because he had a heart defect, but he was a professor of German, and he used his skills in the German language to help train our soldiers. So, you know, because of what they did, and my grandmothers were on the home front, which was a huge thing, you know, because they're doing the rationing and, you know, they don't have, and this is just the U.S., I mean, they weren't getting bombed, and you think about what was happening in Europe. But anyway, the more I heard their stories, the more I wanted to honor them. And one of the ways I try to honor them is by getting things right, because I don't think we're doing them any favors by, you know, telling myths or romanticizing it or by downplaying it. Neither of those is a good approach, because it minimizes what they really went through.
Yeah.
And you do such a great job of pulling us right into the story. I love that. And you've written standalone and series. I wanted to ask, what's your favorite? And what's the difference for you?
And my standard question is, I usually turn it on to the person who asked the question and ask them, do you have children? How many? And who's your favorite?
It depends on which day you ask.
The same way. Exactly. I know. And that's my answer too. But yeah. And honestly, that's the answer to my stories too. And I'm looking at myself and looking at 17 books now, and I can tell you the strengths and weaknesses of each book, and something I like and something I don't like about each book. And so, you know, in a way, they're my little literary babies, and I love them all. I am fond of all those characters, and I don't have a favorite. If I have a favorite, it's usually the book I'm writing right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering if your publishers, I'm not sure why they would, have they ever asked you to write anything other than World War II?
Not right now. So about 7-8 years ago, I'm trying to remember when it was. No, closer to 10 years ago. And at that point, World War II was big in the mainstream market, but it hadn't taken off in the Christian market. And I'd written, I think I was on my 6th or 7th book, and my sales were decent, but not taking off. And my publisher just wasn't seeing growth, which is what they want to see at that point in your career. And they were saying, hey, can you write romantic suspense? I'm like, I don't want to write romantic suspense. And so at that point, that was when I put together the proposal for the Sunrise at Normandy series. And I don't know why they accepted it, but they did. And I'm glad that one happened to hit just about the same time that the World War II was picking up in the Christian market. And so by then I was nicely situated. I already had, 9-10 books out. And so I became known as kind of a go-to author for what had become a hot genre. So I found myself in a pretty good position. And the Sunrise at Normandy series sold really well. And since then they've been selling even better. So I've been, so right now they're not asking me to do anything different. But honestly, at this point, every 3 years I come to them with a new proposal for another contract. I usually get a 3-book contract. And every time I sit down with my editor and my agent and say, okay, what's going on with the market? What's going on with my books? Mm-hmm. Do you want to see me do something different? And even within the World War II genre, do you want to see me go in a different direction? What would you like to see from me? And I try to listen. I listen to them as much as I can because they know the market. They know their readers. They have a better eye for what's going on in the future, where they see trends going. So I really try to listen to them. So, but right now they're saying, go. Just keep going.
And
so
we're so thankful you are.
We're thankful.
So for those of you who are just joining us, this was Sarah Sundin joining us on the Biscuit Book Club. And people can read her books. Go to Barnes & Noble. Run. Do not walk to Barnes & Noble or
Target.
to your local library or to Target. Wherever books are sold, ask for a Sarah Sundin book. And you know what? I loved Embers in the London Sky, but I'm really enjoying Midnight on the Scottish Shore. So if you're getting ready to go someplace for a great summer vacation, or if you're just having a staycation, grab one of Sarah's books for a great summer read. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us.
Thank you.
This has been Marcy Seither and Shelley Sulfridge, and we're just thank you for joining us on the Biscuit Book Club. And join us next week when we talk with more guests about books, biscuits, and, a little bit of everything in between.
Thank you for listening to today's Biscuit Book Club with Marcy and Shelley. Be listening next week at the same time for great encouragement and a challenge for what God has for your life on the Biscuit Book Club on Joy 620 WRJZ.